thanks very much. I'm John Cameron. I'm the school district moderator. And also present with us this evening, I'm first going to introduce the school board members that are here with us. Kurt Weber, chairperson. Karen Thurston. Ray Mello Andrews, the secretary. Sue Allen. And Paul Blandford, vice chair. At this table over here, we have Dick Hickok, the chairman of the budget committee, and the school district clerk, Kim Baricchio. Did I say it right? Oh, darn it. That was cool. We also have school administrators with us tonight, and we'll start with Kent Hemingway, the superintendent. Scott Isabel, business administrator. Bob Pedersen, the Guilford High School interim principal. And also Peter Sawyer, principal-elect for Guilford High School. Nice to see you over here. Marcia Ross, Guilford Middle School principal. And Cara LaMontagne, Guilford Elementary School interim principal. And also here on the stage is Gordon Graham, the school district attorney. Right there, the one that nodded. And let's move on from...
No applause for attorneys?
I think that's a sympathy vote, is that?
There you go. That's it.
Now, as I always promise to do, I will make every effort to move this meeting along efficiently, and I thank you in advance for your cooperation and your patience. And before we do anything else, please join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have a few announcements. First of all, we would like to remind you that with the exception of water, food and drink are not permitted in the auditorium. State law prohibits smoking anywhere on the school grounds. For safety, please note your nearest exits. Exits are located in the front, rear center, and sides of the auditorium. I guess the signs are pretty clear. And in case of an emergency evacuation, please meet in the bus loop in front of the middle school next door. Now, in the event that we require a paper ballot tonight, the ballot voting will be in this auditorium, and prior to any voting, the procedures will be reviewed with you. You can look in the back and see that we've got tables set up in the event we need them.
For those of you who may not be aware, this is Mr. Dick Hickok's last year on the budget committee. And so on behalf of the Guilford School Board and the Guilford School District, I would like to thank him for his years of service on the budget committee, his years of service to the community of Guilford, and would ask everybody to join us in a round of applause.
Okay, we have a few protocols and ground rules to review. All voting residents are entitled to be heard on the issues before us today and to be treated with courtesy. Please, no applause, no jeers directed at anyone who has addressed or is addressing this meeting. Once an article has been moved and seconded, a school board member, administrator, other designated official, or petitioner shall be the first speaker to initially explain the article as may be necessary. In each warrant article where a dollar appropriation is involved, the chairman of the budget committee will also address the article. Thereafter, the floor will be open for discussion on the article and any registered voter wishing to be heard may speak. We will loosely follow the rules of debate, but we are not necessarily bound by Robert's Rules of Order, as they are not always applicable to this type of meeting. Individuals wishing to speak must approach one of the 2 microphones provided in the aisles. I think probably everybody here is used to the scenario. Please do not speak until I recognize you. We will alternate between the microphones to give everyone wishing to speak a fair opportunity to do so. If you wish to speak but are physically unable to go to one of the aisle microphones, please raise your hand and a runner will bring a microphone to you. When you speak, identify yourself by stating your full name and your address in Guilford. Confine your questions or remarks to the article on the floor only. Please limit your remarks or questions to 5 minutes when you first address an article. There will be no conceding of time to allow another to speak the 5-minute limit or beyond their 5-minute limit. You will be allowed a second opportunity to speak on the same article only after all other persons wishing to be heard have spoken one time. You are asked to limit your remarks to 2 minutes when speaking a second time on the same article. I will give you a warning when 30 seconds remain, and I will do my best to ensure that all persons are given a fair and equal opportunity to express their views or to ask questions. When speaking, name-calling and personality disparagement will not be tolerated. Anyone doing so will be required to take his or her seat, or they will be asked to leave the meeting. If you have a question for the school board or the budget committee relative to an issue that is pending on the floor, direct the question to me, and I will then defer the question to the appropriate member or to the district legal counsel. You cannot speak to an article and then immediately move the question, nor can you move the question if people are waiting at the microphones to speak. I reserve the right as moderator to hold such a motion in abeyance if such a motion is clearly premature. Ultimately, once discussion has ended on an article, we will proceed to the next article. There will be no dispositive vote on warrant articles tonight. That voting takes place on March 13th. I repeat that only registered voters in the town of Guilford shall be allowed to address the meeting, except for those school administrators and legal counsel whose input is necessary to address an article or questions posted subject to overrule by the meeting. Now, amendments. As to amendments, one may wish to propose to an article. Only one amendment will be allowed from, I didn't read that very well, did I? Let me do that again. As to amendments, one may wish to propose to an article. Only one amendment will be allowed from the floor at a time. Once the amendment has been voted on, a subsequent amendment then may be proposed. The moving party who proposes an amendment to an article must put the amendment in writing and present it to me, the moderator, before it will be voted on, assuming it has been duly moved and seconded. All votes on any amendments, unless petitioned otherwise for ballot vote by 5 or more eligible voters, shall be by voice or standing vote, depending on the number of voters present. Simple majority rules for all amendments. In the unanticipated event that a ballot vote is called for, ballot voting shall be in this auditorium, as I already mentioned, and again, I will explain the balloting procedure just prior to our breaking to conduct the voting. And finally, I remind you that any ruling made by the moderator is subject to overrule by a majority of the individuals at this meeting. So with that, we shall proceed. And as typical, Article 1 is merely a notice that these positions will be voted on at the voting on March 13th. So we are going to move on to Article 2. Article 2 relates to the general budget funds, and Article 2 reads as follows. Shall the Guilford School District vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $24,142,615. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $24,469,607, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Guilford School District or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, Roman numeral 10 and 16, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Note that this warrant article, the operating budget, does not include appropriations in any other warrant article that we may be addressing tonight. Is there a motion from the school board on this article as written?
I actually make a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right.
I move Article 2 be placed on the ballot as read.
Okay, is there a second?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there any discussion, Dick, from you?
I think the only perspective I can provide from the Budget Committee's point of view is that we were basically in agreement with the school board, who put a lot of effort into this, along with all the departments. It's a budget that's $327,000 less than last year, which is a little over 1%.
Is there any discussion or comment from the school board? Okay, from the floor.
Barbara Eichinger, 558 Edgewater Drive. I think some of us who've been reading the newspaper this week saw that the newfound school district has cut their budget by 10%. They did a 16-district study. They found that they were on the higher end of the cost per student and the amount of money that they spent, with the only exception of Guilford and Bow. I took a look at those figures, and of course Guilford was the highest. So out of that 16-district study, Guilford has the highest cost per student, now that Newfound has cut their budget. So I would like to make an amendment to Article 2, Mr. Moderator, to amend the budget to reduce it by 3%. That amount is $724,278.45 to $23,418,336.55. And we would request a paper ballot.
Is there a second to the motion to amend the budget? Yes, sir.
Skip Murphy, I would second this amendment.
Okay. Okay. Any discussion on the motion to amend the budget? Go ahead, please.
I just wanted to give the exact figures. Newfound had 1,340 students with their total cost per student at $15,536.74. Now this is 2010-2011 figures. Guilford and the 2010-2011 figures being $16,560.70. So that is, $1,000 more per student. And I think this is a reasonable 3% cut. We did try for 10% last year. We did see that the school portion of the tax rate went up 7.6%, mostly due to falling assessments. So I do believe this is a reasonable 3% cut.
Very good. Oh, I'm sorry. Can we have a comment from the school board first, and then you're next?
One of the key things about this year's budget, going into it, we had almost $700,000 in increases that we had no control over. Health insurance, dental insurance, and fuel costs. And so when you look at our budget compared to last year's budget, and the fact that we're over $300,000 less than we were last year, then when you add in that additional $700,000 of increases we had no control over, this year's budget actually represents a sizable decrease. To decrease it even further would harm the programs at the schools, and we would not, the school board does not recommend that.
Thank you. Sir?
I expected you to talk longer. Joe Wernick, 3 Gary Circle. Out of that 16 district study, I feel here we get more bang for our buck than most, if not all of those schools that are in that study. If you've seen the results, articles in the newspaper, AP History, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, we had 5 students get a perfect 5. 5 out of 5 on that. And we have over 70% of our students in AP classes score a 4 or better. And when you score a 4 or better, you score a 4, you score a 5, that counts towards college credits. And being a parent of a college-age student, you know, my daughter saved me a semester's worth of school because of the AP classes and running start classes we offer here at Guilford. And it's not just the school. You look at the drama, you look at the athletics, you look at the co-curricular. Guilford has an incredible reputation. And every year, we get up here and tell people that. Anybody that has had kids that have gone through our schools here, not private schools or shipped them someplace else, our kids here get a quality education. And when we have the budget committee vote this budget 10-2, I don't remember the last time we had the budget committee in such an agreement over the budget for the school. And I strongly disagree with this amendment, and I would urge people to vote no on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Lisa DiMartino, 23 Williamsburg Avenue in Guilford. I have 2 children, Ashley and John Michael, and Ashley graduated from Guilford in 2010. She's currently a sophomore at American University in Washington, D.C. Thank you, Guilford High School. John Michael is currently a freshman at Guilford, and my son has special needs, and epilepsy, behavior challenges, you name it. My son pretty much covers it all. I'd like to support the work and the recommendations that were made on the current proposed budget by both the school board and the budget committee, so thank you. I understand that a lot of work and compromise went into the development of the workable budget that reduces costs in these challenging economic times, but also allows for the quality education and programs that Guilford children deserve. The agreed above budget reduces last year's budget by over $300,000, I believe. Some of the reductions include special education. And although I support the proposed budget and work done by both committees, I fear that any additional cuts could severely jeopardize the outstanding special education program here in Guilford that my son needs. And my son belongs here, this school, and in this community, and here in New Hampshire, because if he doesn't get the right support, help, education, who knows what could happen. It will cost more money later on. Also, Guilford has a great school system and outstanding teachers, paraprofessionals, and support staff that my son needs. Much of the success of our schools is due to their hard work, dedication, and professionalism. Under the current proposed budget, employees will not get salary increases. And this is the second year that support staff will go without increases. This is extremely difficult. The value that a community places on its children and future are educated says so much about a community and its essence. So yes, in challenging economic times, there are sacrifices to be made and compromises to be reached by all. And that has been accomplished here by the school board and by the budget committee. So I urge that the current proposed budget, and I do not agree with this amendment here, which cuts over $300,000 from last year's budget, be supported, embraced without further reductions, which could jeopardize the quality of the schools. And think about, I've moved around the country, and I moved here 12 years ago, and I came to Guilford. My husband was located in Concord. I came to Guilford because of the school district. So we want to keep our home values, right? I mean, that, especially in this economic times, we want a good school district because we want people moving here. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Let's just been waiting to see if anybody else wants to speak.
One comment on the last speaker was the value, the home values. Okay, so the home values, the overall assessment in the town of Guilford has decreased by 1.4%. So if you ask most major economy-type individuals, they will tell you that a rising tax rate affects the value of the assets. And since we're a heavily property tax-based state, as the tax rate continues to rise, your assessments will continue to drop, your home values will continue to drop, and so you're basically biting the hand that feeds you.
Thank you.
David Horvath, 28 Timber Lane, Guilford. Just a question. I wanted to clarify a point the previous speaker made. On the contract that's being proposed for the employees or the union contract, if I understand it correctly, there's a 0% increase. However, that does not limit changes or step increases or other changes either through education that would bump them up in steps. Am I correct or incorrect in asking that question?
Yeah, that does not relate to this specific warrant article.
Well, just a point of clarification is that whether you're saying salaries are flat, within the matrix for teachers, is it indeed flat? Are there abilities for pay raises to change or pay scales to change? That's all I'm asking,
Okay.
whether it's a contract or not.
Ken Hemingway, Superintendent. To address that for moderator, the increases, there are no increases for any school district employees next year. There are no step increases, there is no percentage increase. Non-union staff, all non-union staff have accepted a contract that has $0 increase with no increment. In our article for the teacher contract, which will come up next, we can speak to the very small education attainment that applies to about 6 staff members. So there is no step involved for teachers in the bargaining unit as well.
Thank you. Okay. Before we get ready to do a paper ballot, I will report to you that we have what we need. We have a written amendment, and we have an adequate number of people who have requested a paper ballot. So we will suspend the meeting as far as the deliberation is concerned so that we can vote. And before we open the polls, let me read to you how we're going to do this. Once I declare the polls to be open, please come to the front of the auditorium and form lines up the aisles toward the rear of the auditorium. And you can see there's signs A through, and I'm sorry I can't make out A through what is it?
A through D.
A through D? Okay, great. Oh, I'm sorry, we've got 4. Okay, good. So find your alphabet and go to that particular spot in the table And before I forget to say it, thank you to the volunteers who are managing the balloting for us.
Mr. Moderator,
I'm sorry.
just a point of clarification. With this pick ballot, we're only voting on the amendment, is that correct?
I'm getting to that,
Thank you.
yes. If there are any seasoned citizens here, or somebody that might need a little bit of assistance getting to the tables to vote, please let them go in front of you. There are 2 checklist tables. Proceed to the tables provided to mark your ballot, then take your marked ballot to the ballot box near the center exit. Be certain that you mark your ballot clearly and carefully. You have only 2 choices, yes or no. And yes means that you vote in favor of the amendment as it has been presented. I will reread the amendment for you. And no if you are opposed to the amendment as it has been presented. When voting on the ballot issue, the polls will remain open for 3 minutes after it appears that the last voter present has cast his or her vote. Once the polls have been closed, we will reconvene the meeting and move on with subsequent articles while the ballots are being counted. So to reread the amendment, this is an amendment to Article 2, and it reads as follows: to amend the budget to reduce by 3%, and 3% is $724,278.45, the budgeted amount to $23,418,336.55. Yes or no to that amendment? Okay? Then the balloting will begin now.
Crop TV.